On today's video, we are talking about one of the inevitable things that happen as a runner. We all get older and we all tend to slow down. But we're going to be talking about how to counteract the effect of aging when it comes to the speed that you run at. And Lindsay has a great example, and it's really close to home. His dad, who is a phenomenal runner, still running 48-minute 10Ks at the age of 70. And we'll find out exactly how he's done it and what he has done in order to counteract the effects of aging. It's all coming up on today's video. This is not one you want to miss. Let's head over to the coach. It's good to have you back on, Coach. Today we're talking about slowing down as a runner as we get older. And it's something a lot of people struggle with and struggle to come to terms with. But in your experience, when do you start slowing down due to age as a runner?
So that, Brad, is a really good question because there isn't any kind of formula for it. So, and what I'm about to say now, there's no research paper that's gonna give you this answer. It's an observation. But the earlier you start running, so in other words, the more years and more load you've got on your body, the sooner you tend to slow down. That's the one observation I've made. And the other observation is that the guys who stick to the shorter, faster stuff, that for example, stay away from the ultra marathons. The guys and ladies who do that also tend to hang on to their speed for much longer. So those are the kind of two things that I would say have the biggest impact on how soon we start to slow down. I mean, typically, if you have a look at what's happening on the elite scene, there are still some marathon runners that are very fast, very competitive, well into their 30s, and even just about 40 years old. And those are people that have run, for the most part, for their entire life. So there is no question that as we age, there will come a time where we do start to slow down, and there are a couple of things that we can do to slow that process down. But yeah, the good news is that if you picked up running in your 30s, then chances are you're going to keep getting faster a lot longer than your peers. And as your peers start to slow down, you might still be speeding up.
Lindsay, you talk about the things you can do to counteract slowing down as you get older. What are some of those things that we can do?
So recovery is one of those. So I do find that in the initial stages of when people start to slow down, if they can make a few changes to reduce the fatigue. So we do get a little bit more tired than we used to get. Our bodies can't handle at quite the same training load. So if we are attuned to that process and we adapt our training to allow our bodies to have a little bit more recovery time, so that might be in the form of slightly reducing high intensity workouts in terms of their volume, but certainly not reducing the actual intensity, or putting slightly longer gaps between those high intensity sessions, certainly dropping the volume slightly. Now that is counterintuitive to a lot of people, but it does depend a little bit on how your goals are shifting as you do get older. Strength training, absolutely key to maintaining, because part of what is happening as we age, we're all losing testosterone. Men and women are going through the same thing, and we are losing muscle. So if you can do strength training and hold on to that muscle, that's definitely going to slow down that rate of regression or muscle loss. And then doing cross training makes an enormous difference as we get older, and that plays a little bit into the recovery part, where we putting less eccentric strain on the body, and then of course keeping up the cardiovascular component by doing less high impact exercise, cycling, swimming, elliptigo, rowing, those type of things. But if we combine those three aspects, then you can really still get, or you can really slow down that rate of slowing down.
Lindsay, you mentioned the strength training. If you are interested in getting a strength training program, we've got one free on our website. You can just click on the link that's with this video, and you can go straight through there and download it as well. Lindsay, you also mentioned the cutting back on the volume and the amount of training. And that is quite a tough pill to swallow, or a bitter pill to swallow for a lot of people who have run for a long time. And there was a time where the school of thinking was, if you want to get better, you simply need to run more. And there's quite a few guys and girls who've been running for a long time that are still in that frame of mind, that are running 6 days a week, and they're struggling to not get faster, but to stop the slowing down. And your dad's a really good example of that. He was a fantastic runner in his prime. He's still a great runner. He's 70 now, running fantastically well, but he cut back a bit on the training and saw fabulous results.
Absolutely. So, in his 50s, he was really struggling, lots of injuries, slowing down. And then I eventually convinced him to cut down. He was a 7-day-a-weeker. And I convinced him to cut back to 4 days of running a week. And over the next 7 years, he actually got faster and faster and faster until at that point of over 7 years, he was able to run the times that he ran when he turned 50. So when he was 57, he'd gotten himself back to the point where he was running times when he was 50 years old. So it made an enormous difference. Look, and obviously, like I said, there's no way to completely eradicate it. He's 70 now, but as you said, he's still for a 70-year-old. He can run 48 minutes, which is quite phenomenal. So he has found a way to only lose essentially a couple of seconds over 10Ks over the years. He does get significantly slower though once we get past the half marathon, and that does come down to things like strength, and your endurance starts to go when you're older. But the reality is that at cross country and 10K races, he's only losing a couple of seconds a year, so he's really slowing down slowly.
Yeah, and let me just add, that's 48 minutes for 10Ks. Lindsay, you forgot to put that in. That is unbelievable at the age of 70. From a nutrition point of view, would that play a part in, is there anything you can do supplementation-wise, or is it just healthy, balanced diet, and it's going to keep you going as fast as you can for longer?
Look, there's absolutely no question that eating a healthy diet, and look, there's so many things out there. So what is a healthy diet? And this is something I'm not an expert on, but I firmly believe, just from what I'm experiencing in my own body and the types of food that are making me feel uncomfortable now that didn't in the past, that as we get older, our nutrition does need to change. So I apologize that I can't give any really neat pearls of wisdom, other than to say that just like you need to reduce your mileage a little bit, what I'm finding in my 40s now is that I do not and I cannot tolerate the same quantities of food that I was able to consume 3 to 5 years ago. It just makes me feel so uncomfortable. And so I do feel that the type of food become important because we're losing a lot of muscle mass. My educated guess is that you probably do need to increase your protein content or the proportion of your protein content in your diet, but absolutely you need to, as you get older, you need to be putting in the highest quality petrol into the tank to sustain the vehicle, and the more junk food you eat, the worse it will be.
Thanks for joining us on this video. Don't forget, if you don't want to miss any of these videos that we put out, hit the subscribe button over here. You can catch our latest video over here, and one of our most popular is over here. And also, if you want to shave 10 minutes off your PB, all you need to do is download our free strength training program. You can get that right here.